Hi, this is Sean D'Souza, and you're listening to the 3-Month Vacation Podcast. This podcast isn't some magic trick about how to work less. Instead, it's about how to really enjoy the work that you do and to enjoy your vacation time. Hi, I'm Sean, and you're listening to the 3-Month Vacation. You may or may not have noticed, but when you get to a psychotactics page, if it's for a workshop or a course, you find that there is no buy now button. There's all the information on the page. There are testimonials, there are bullets. It's like a regular sales page with one thing missing, and that is the buy now button. And there is a reason for that. It is because customers buy long before they pay. And you and I don't go through this routine if we're buying some apples from the store or some candy. But if we're buying a fridge or a washing machine, we go through this process as well. We also tend to go through this process when we're buying something extremely small and seemingly inconsequential, like an app. It may cost just a few dollars, but we'll do our reading. And to some extent, that is Presell. That sales page is Presell, and it doesn't have a buy now button. It's engineered to get someone onto a list, and that list, as we talked about, is a silo. It's a separate area. And once they sign up, then they get goodies and announcements and all of that stuff. And after I did that series on Presell, I got a whole bunch of questions. You could call them non-frequently asked questions. So let's take the questions, and I'm sure you'll enjoy the answers as well. Here we go into Presell land. The first question that pops up is, what if the Presell falls flat? What if nothing happens? And one of the most often repeated stories that I tell is about the article writing course. Back in 2005, we'd considered conducting the course online, but I wasn't so sure it was a good idea. Who wants to learn to write about articles, I thought to myself. And anyway, we had no notes, we had no audio, we didn't even have a syllabus. We decided to treat the announcement as a sort of advertisement for future article writing courses. To our surprise, the course was filled almost immediately. It was a complete fluke. You don't want that fluke. You want the course to be filled up. Logically, there's no reason for you to fail if you go through the pre-sale process, if you play your cards right. But at the risk of sounding like your mother, you have to do your best. And trite as it sounds, it's a philosophy that we have to this day. When we had our meetup earlier this year, about 6 or 7 people turned up in Singapore. In Auckland, which is our home ground, once again, we had just 6 or 7. That's about 50% of what we'd expect for a meetup because we have about 15 people. But in Frankfurt and in Amsterdam, there's usually a waiting list. And what this exercise is telling us is that we are kind of pre-selling the next time's meetup. So maybe this time it was just 50% or 30% or 20%. It doesn't matter. In Sweden, we had just 2 people show up. I think maybe 3. Granted, we have a much smaller audience in places like Sweden or Greece, but we treat it like an advertisement for the next time. And that becomes a pre-sell for the next time, and you go from 3 to 5, and then 5 to 7, and 7 to 10, and then you might go back to 3, as we did in Singapore. The first time we had our meetup in Singapore, it was full. 15 people showed up. Next time, 7 people showed up. But the point is, when you do this on a consistent basis, you're letting your audience know the activities that you're conducting. And it will come to a point where every course, every workshop, everything that you do is jam-packed. But you have to think of it first as an advertisement. And that brings us to the end of the first one, which is treating Presell as an advertisement. The second is cold versus warm list in Presell. A cold list is always going to be much harder to sell. It depends on the product or service, however. Let's say it's a new camera lens and the person is very interested in improving their pictures. Then they're a cold audience for you, but a warm audience in the sense that they're already ready to buy something in that area of lenses. Your product or service ultimately depends on how much the client has been thinking about their problem. A warm audience tends to have fewer people who have been thinking about the problem, but those few people that trust your judgment, they trust your teaching, they trust your products or your services, and they inherently behave that you're not going to let them down. We tend to think rationally about cold versus warm audience, but that's not entirely a useful classification. A better classification is, 1, is the audience warmed up about the concept, product or service? Is it something that they've been thinking about? If they are, then they're more likely to buy into a product or a service, even if they don't trust you. But of course, the best pre-sell is where you create that trust. And this is an ongoing effort. We start out a pre-sell for an article writing course. Say the article writing course is in 2020. This is July of 2019. Well, that pre-sell has already begun. When is it going to be in 2020? We don't know. And that's the beauty of pre-sell. You don't have to have all the details right in front of you. What you have to do is get people listening to that channel, and then you giving out snippets or some fun thing or just making some announcements from time to time. And that is what gets the client tuned in and ready for that moment down the line, maybe a year from now. When I'm walking around in Auckland, I will look at posters. And the bigger the show, like some comedian like Michael McIntyre, his show is announced a year in advance. You look at a lot of the movies and look at the trailers, and they're like 6-7 months in advance. And that should give you some pause for thought. That these people are already well-known brands, people already know them really well, and the people that are better known are taking more time to pre-sell. That's quite a sobering thought. Which takes us to our third question, which is the open rates of email, and are they essential for pre-sell? The open rate seems to be a good indication, and probably is. I don't know. I see open rates as a nice to have, but it's a bit like window shopping. You don't know who's going to buy stuff from you. So I try to match the open rate by an action rate. Maybe there's a tiny something that you can get the audience to do, and their payoff is worth the trouble. What this means is that a client gets your email, or they get whatever you're sending to them, and then they have to do something. It doesn't have to be a big thing. It can be a small thing. They have to go someplace. They have to do something. There is an action rate. And that's what you have to measure. I send it out to 100 people and 15 people took that action. And that is more crucial than just sending it out. Now, you don't get rid of those 85 or 90 people who did nothing, because maybe they will take the action next time or the time after. But what you're doing is you're always trying to get people to take one more little step. They're investing time in you and in themselves. And that is what makes that transaction like a relationship. It goes from transaction to relationship because they're now taking some action. And that's worth measuring if you want to measure something. I tend to think of it as dating. People who show up at a party are a good sign. Your party was a success, but everyone got through the door. The people who leave together, that's a better sign. And nothing may happen. They may simply be dropping the other person home or exchanging numbers, but it's still one step ahead. And I think that's a better thing to look at, which is, how do I design one little extra step to take this transaction further? To take that transaction and make it a mini relationship. Which takes us to our fourth question, which is it illogical to pre-sell when clients are on holiday? We think the clients are logical. They're on holiday. They won't be checking their email. They won't be in work mode. But they're not that logical. And you can't know for sure if a pre-sell in this phase would be worse or better or exactly the same as any other time of the year. The only way to go ahead is to go ahead, and especially if you have no option. The worst downside is that no one buys. Well, no one buys this time around. And when you have the assumption, you can check it. For instance, we were told not to have a workshop in the US during Mother's Day. And we ignored the advice partly because I wasn't aware of the event until after we'd announced the seats and then sold some of them. Apparently, Mother's Day in the US is more significant than any other day, including Thanksgiving or Christmas. Now, I'm not sure that that statement is especially true. And granted, there was some grumbling, but we had a full workshop. We had as many women show up on Mother's Day as on any other day during the year. Why? Because the workshop was scarce enough for them. It was valuable enough for them to figure out that they could still celebrate Mother's Day when they got back, but the workshop wouldn't wait for them in the near future. This lesson, weird as it was, showed us that you can't trust a holiday, you can't trust some logic that people throw in your face. The emotion of loss is far greater than the logic, and so if you have something that's valuable enough, that's scarce enough, that has enough urgency, and that you've done enough resale, there is a pretty good chance that your clients are going to turn up no matter what day of the year it is. There will be exceptions, but give it a shot. So as we wind down this podcast, let's take a look at 3 specific points. And the first thing is the assumption. I think that it's a safe assumption to make that people do want to learn more, they do want to deepen their skills, they do want to buy whatever product or service you have. But often they don't buy because there's not enough safety, there's uncertainty, and the value proposition is not clear. The snippets, the announcement, the bonuses, all of that helps to build up that value proposition in their mind. And when you reduce that risk, the buying signal turns on. And that brings us to the end of this podcast, which was the non-FAQ, non-frequently asked questions. What did we cover? The first question was, what if the pre-sale falls flat? And it might, but when you treat it as an advertisement, as something for the future, then there is a lot less tension. There's a lot less fear that you're going to fail. And you're able to craft something in terms of the pre-sale sequence that clients warm up to. So that was the first thing. Treat it as something for the future. We still do, by the way, so there's no reason why you shouldn't. The second is slightly esoteric. It is cold versus warm list in pre-sale. Sometimes a client is ready to buy a copywriting course, or they're ready to buy an app, or they're ready to buy a phone, and you don't know if they're going to buy yours because they're not on your list. So they're warm, but you don't know. The best warm client you can have is someone on your list, which is why when we talked about the silo, that section, that channel in the previous podcast, that's what you should be creating. Someone that is more likely to know you is more likely to buy from you. I mean, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but unless you create that separate channel and unless you start doing something with that channel, it's unlikely that you're going to have a warm list. Now, you might just be sending them editorial, which could be video or audio or text. And within that, you could be pre-selling, and it's still a warm list. But if you're out of sight, you're out of mind, and then pre-sell just becomes impossible. Sales becomes impossible. Finally, don't get obsessed with open rates of email. It's a nice metric to have, but the more crucial thing is the action that people take. So if you announce a webinar, how many people sign up to that webinar? How many people show up? Those are the kind of metrics that you want to look at. And that is if you're interested in metrics. I'm not interested in metrics. What I'm interested is in a core group of people that are very keen on what we have to offer. That's just my personality, of course. There are people that love numbers, and if that's your thing, then metrics is great, but just don't get tripped up by metrics, because eventually it's nice to have window shoppers, because eventually you want to get them in the shop. They're looking at your window, but get them in the shop. Get that one action going so that they can get into the shop instead of standing out on the sidewalk or the pavement. So what is the one thing that you can do today? I think the one thing that you can do today is just be speculative. This doesn't require any work on your part, but think of something that you're going to sell a long time from now. Maybe 8 or 9 months from now. It could be something small, like a meetup. It could be something small, like a little report that you're going to give away. And then work your way backwards. What are you going to do from there? How are you going to get up to that moment 9 months from now or a year from now? There's no reason why you can't sell stuff in between. But try and focus that point way out in the future and then work backwards from there. And that's what will build up that pre-sale mindset. And that's really what you need. What's happening in Psychotactics land? Well, there are 3 home study courses in the next 3 months. The info products, uniqueness, and the article writing home study. Now, all of them have goodies. All of them have this little channel that you can subscribe to. But what do you get when you get into those goodies and subscribe to it? Well, you get lots of little bits of information that are consumable, that are easy to digest. And I think you'll like it. All of them have little tags like psychotactics.com/ugoodies, that's for uniqueness goodies, psychotactics.com, AW goodies, that's for article writing goodies, and then psychotactics.com/info goodies. So that's info, AW, and U, and then goodies. So that's all coming up, and all the dates are on the page. So whatever you're interested in, go there. If you're interested in all of them, go and get the goodies. You don't have to buy anything, but I think you'll enjoy the goodies. That's me saying bye for now, and we'll see you in 5000 BC. Bye-bye. Still listening? One of the things about pre-sale is that we didn't do a lot of pre-sale when we started out. And over the years, we've had to refine the system. Often when we're having lunch, Renuka will come excitedly or frustratedly and say, I can't believe that we haven't done this or that. And it just takes years to put all of these systems together, and it makes a difference. The thing is that when you look at it, the next time you do the pre-sale, say we're doing the pre-sale for a storytelling course. There is no storytelling course, but let's say we're doing a pre-sale for a storytelling course. The first time is just the version 1 of that pre-sale. And the next time you host it, well, you look at your pre-sale sequence and you go, oh, I could have done this, or I should have done that, or I could have fixed this. And you go through this constant evolution of your pre-sale sequence. And what this tells us is that you have to start somewhere. so that you can have a version 2 and a version 3. And it sounds like a lot of work, and it is a lot of work. And it's never going to be, oh wow, this is so easy the second time or the third time around. Every time it's going to be just as much work, if not more. But the results are going to be better. So it's better that you start with that Presell sequence and then fix it as you go from year to year or from event to event. Well, it's almost 6 a.m. Time for a walk. Time for some coffee. Bye-bye.